He was ruthless.
People say I'm ruthless. I'm not ruthless. I'm doing my job for Manchester United.
That's it. Get the passing fluid. Take a touch.
And he's so red and you shoot past the ball.
I could lose my temper if I lose a game. You know why? They forgot the expectation. They forgot the very thing we work every day for.
So like, up until Jose, I'd never had a manager that was so fixated on winning.
If the players are powerful enough to change a manager.
He's a manager that he's just a winner.
Your job now is to stand by our new manager. It was great to go out with that.
Most people remember that speech as Ferguson saying goodbye. They missed the most important sentence. Stand by your new manager.
I'd also like to remind you, when we had bad times here, the club stood by me, all my staff stood by me, the players stood by me.
Ferguson understood something long before anyone else. Manchester United would never return, unless the club protected the man on the touchline. Years later, Jose Mourinho reached exactly the same conclusion. Different personalities, different generations, the same warning. Then came Michael Carrick. He watched Mourinho fight the battle. He experienced Manchester United from inside. He left, learned how to build a team of his own, and came back. And last season, it looked like the lesson had finally been learned. Manchester United climbed back to third. Carrick was made permanent manager. The football changed. The belief returned. The rebuild looked real. Then, Hull happened. 2 goals, 2 set pieces, and a Manchester United side that suddenly looked vulnerable again. One defeat doesn't erase everything Carrick built, but it does create a question. Did Carrick really fix Manchester United, or was the problem only temporarily hidden? When people remember Sir Alex Ferguson, they remember the trophies, the comebacks, the hairdryer treatment, the fear. But none of those things explain why Manchester United dominated English football for more than 2 decades. Because Ferguson always believed something much simpler. Managers don't build winning teams, they build winning cultures. Long before pressing became fashionable, before positional play, before tactical systems dominated football, Ferguson obsessed over one thing: standards.
And they keep playing the football. They don't change. Don't panic. They keep to the beliefs of their manager.
Every player knew them. Every coach enforced them. Nobody was bigger than them. Roy Keane, David Beckham, Ruud van Nistelrooy, even Cristiano Ronaldo. Talent earned opportunities. Standards kept you at Manchester United. That's why Ferguson could constantly rebuild. One generation disappeared. Another replaced it. Yet the culture never changed. Because the manager didn't protect reputations. The club protected the manager. That was the real Manchester United. Not the formation, not the tactics, authority. Then, Ferguson retired, and almost overnight, the one thing he spent 26 years protecting began to disappear. At first, nobody noticed, because the badge was still the same. Old Trafford was still full. The expectations never changed. But behind the scenes, something much more important had. Manchester United no longer demanded standards, it negotiated them. And once that happened, every manager who followed inherited the same invisible problem. Not a tactical problem, a cultural one. One that Sir Alex Ferguson had quietly warned about, years before anyone else could see it. The first manager to discover that reality wasn't Michael Carrick. It was Jose Mourinho, and unlike Ferguson, he experienced it from inside the dressing room. By the time Jose Mourinho arrived at Old Trafford, Manchester United had already changed. David Moyes inherited impossible expectations. Louis van Gaal rebuilt the squad, but never rebuilt the culture. Then came Mourinho. Unlike the managers before him, he wasn't trying to understand Manchester United. He was trying to win immediately. And almost immediately, he noticed something wasn't right. This wasn't the dressing room Sir Alex Ferguson had controlled for 26 years. The authority had shifted, slowly, quietly, but completely. The manager no longer set every standard. The dressing room had its own voices. The club had its own priorities. Commercial success was growing. Social media was becoming part of football. Player influence had never been bigger. Mourinho wasn't surprised by talented players. He had coached some of the greatest footballers in history: John Terry, Didier Drogba, Wesley Sneijder, Cristiano Ronaldo. But at every successful club, there was one rule: the manager came first. At Manchester United, that certainty no longer existed. When Mourinho spoke about player power, many dismissed it as another excuse, another complaint from a manager known for confrontation.
If the players are powerful enough to change a manager, I want to believe no, but do they have some influence? Maybe they have, and in some clubs they have. Again, depends on the structure of the club. But in some others, more inexperience, a little bit more focus on the commercial side and less on the long-term project of a football team. Maybe the players, they can have what you call that power.
But he wasn't describing one player. He was describing an environment where standards became negotiable, where difficult decisions became political, where protecting harmony slowly became more important than demanding excellence. Lessons no coaching course could ever teach, because Mourinho wasn't simply fighting for results. He was fighting to restore something Ferguson had once made unquestionable: authority. And sitting beside Mourinho through all of it was Michael Carrick, not as the manager, not as the decision maker, but as his assistant. Every disagreement, every difficult conversation, every victory, every frustration, Carrick watched it all from only a few feet away. While the public saw conflict, Carrick saw lessons. Years later, when Michael Carrick finally became Manchester United's manager, people expected him to reject Mourinho's methods. Instead, he quietly embraced his most important lesson: not how to coach, but how to lead. Carrick wasn't speaking very much. He was listening. Most assistants spend their careers helping managers. Carrick spent his learning from them. He had already experienced Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United as a player. He knew what it felt like when standards were unquestionable. Then he watched Jose Mourinho try to restore those standards in a completely different era. Two legendary managers, two completely different personalities, yet both kept arriving at the same conclusion. Talent wasn't Manchester United's biggest problem. Culture was. For many people, Mourinho's departure marked the end of an era. For Carrick, it became the beginning of an education. He remained at the club after Mourinho left. He worked under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He experienced another dressing room, another manager, another way of leading. Then, in 2021, for 3 matches, he stepped into the spotlight himself. Many remember the results: victories over Villarreal and Arsenal, a draw at Chelsea, an unbeaten spell. But the results weren't the most important part. Carrick made a decision that surprised everyone. He walked away. He chose to leave Manchester United instead of staying under another manager. At the time, many saw it as an emotional goodbye. Looking back, it was something else. Carrick understood he didn't need another title beside his name. He needed distance, because for the first time in nearly 2 decades, he had to discover who Michael Carrick was as a coach. Not as Ferguson's midfielder, not as Mourinho's assistant, not as Solskjaer's staff member, just Michael Carrick. So he went to Middlesbrough, away from the spotlight, away from Old Trafford, away from the noise, and there, he made the most important discovery of all. He didn't need to become Sir Alex Ferguson. He didn't need to become Jose Mourinho. He only needed to understand why both of them believed standards mattered more than systems. Carrick has since spoken about how valuable his time under Mourinho was and the lessons he took from working with elite managers. When Manchester United called again, they weren't getting the quiet assistant who had left years earlier. They were getting a manager who finally understood exactly what the club had been missing. When Michael Carrick returned to Manchester United, many expected a different style of football. different tactics, different ideas, different systems. Instead, the biggest change couldn't be seen on a tactics board. It could be felt every single day at Carrington. The standards had returned. Players quickly realised that reputation no longer guaranteed a place in the team. Training intensity mattered, discipline mattered, teamwork mattered. Selection was based on what happened during the week, not what happened 3 years ago. That sounds simple, but for Manchester United, it was a fundamental change. For the first time in years, Manchester United had something they had been missing: a clear identity, a manager the players believed in, and a structure that made sense. The rebuild was real, but there was still one question nobody could answer. Could it survive a setback? Because rebuilding Manchester United isn't about winning when everything is going your way. It's about what happens when the football turns against you. And on the opening weekend, that test arrived. Hull City, newly promoted, opening day, a match Manchester United were expected to control. Instead, they conceded twice from set pieces.
It will be Slater in the end. Could go anywhere, it's gone in! They've got a second!
And suddenly, the entire conversation changed. Because this wasn't just about losing. Every team loses. It was about how United responded. There was no immediate comeback. No wave of pressure that changed the game. No Ferguson-era feeling that the result could still be turned around. Hull stayed ahead. United struggled to find the answer. And the final whistle arrived. Hull City 2, Manchester United 0. For the critics, it was proof that nothing had really changed.
It was always going to be a difficult game, but it's a game you expect them to win. If you're Manchester United and you want to be at least in the top 4 and maybe fighting for the title, you have to go to Hull and win. And they never looked like winning.
For Carrick, it was something else, a test, because the true measure of a rebuild isn't whether you can win, it's whether the culture survives losing.
We've lost the game. We have lost one game, and it's not a nice one to lose, first game of the season. But it won't change what we do and knock us moving forward.
Ferguson taught United that standards couldn't depend on results. Mourinho discovered what happened when authority disappeared. Carrick learned from both. Now Hull has given him his first real test. Not whether he can win, but whether one defeat can change the culture he spent a year rebuilding. Because Manchester United 2.0 won't be defined by how it responds to victory. It will be defined by how it responds to failure. Maybe Hull was just one bad afternoon. Maybe it was the first warning. Right now, nobody knows. But that's what makes this season interesting. Because Michael Carrick has already shown that he can change Manchester United. Now he has to show something even more important. That he can keep Manchester United changed when everything goes wrong. Ferguson built the standard. Mourinho warned what happened when it disappeared. Carrick learned from both, and now, the next chapter belongs to him. The rebuild was never about avoiding failure. It was about what Manchester United does next.